Today we're going to be talking about why I hate coin grading. My name is Christian, this is my channel Treasure Town, and I actually really like coin grading, but I wanted to make a title that would be captivating and convey the point of today's video, which is that we're going to be discussing some of the drawbacks of what coin grading has done and some of the things that it's emphasized. Now, overall, I think coin grading is so important. I think that the hobby would not be what it is today, and I'm a big fan without it. Big fan of PCGS and NGC, and then there's also some sort of specialist grading companies that could have some things that they do well also. I've prepared a list of probably like 10 to 12 drawbacks, though I will be giving some rebuttals or sort of giving the flip side of maybe why it's not such a bad thing, but it'll be fun to discuss and think through, and I'll always be interested in your comments. So reason number one is not something that's super affecting today anymore, but it did leave an initial sort of huge upswing that then left a fair amount of people hurt. So for example, I have this coin, I found it in a coin shop that I was buying from, and I paid like $70 for it. It's a Mintstate 64 NNCS coin, and it's estimated at about $385. Now maybe this was not really a fair valuation and they were inflating it so they could sell it for way more than it's worth. I'm not super familiar with this specific company, but I do know that for a while there were, Walking Liberty half dollars in Mintstate 65 trading for hundreds of dollars, and those prices have never recovered. And there's also been a fair amount of other, Morgan dollars were hit. There was huge backlogs, sort of similar to what we're seeing in the card grading sort of boom right now, where people would just pay way too much for relatively common coins, but it seemed like there was an artificial rarity because of what had been graded at the time. So at this point, it's not as big of a problem, though another second problem that did happen and still to some extent is out there is that there aren't all, not all grading companies are equal. So PCGS, NGC are the main two, and people pay the strongest for US, which is primarily what I cover on this channel, at PCGS. This is a function of two main things. First, set registry, and that's a topic for a whole different video. The other is that since people pay stronger for PCGS coins versus NGC, if you have a really nice one at NGC, it makes sense to try to cross it over to PCGS, and what that ends up meaning is that the best coins do get crossed over to PCGS because it's reasonable to do that, whereas things that might get a little bit overgraded by NGC, they're probably going to stay there because PCGS will maybe a little bit tighter, but they're also in a business competition, so they don't want to grade they don't want to give everything that NGC is grading the same automatic sort of check that's going to cross over. But there's also ICG and ANAX. I think ANAX is viewed as a little bit better. ANAX is going to do all of the different varieties. They might do a little bit of errors, and they're also cheaper. ICG also is reputable in the sense that people aren't paying too much to their pop reports or that sort of thing, but they are allowed on eBay. eBay does not allow any outside of those four, so there are sort of some forces that counteract this, and it's not too challenging to understand which grading companies are good, which are sort of the mid-tier ones, and which there's probably like the not as respected and then really sort of not a grading company. So AACGS is one that's not a grading company that I did, and they sort of just do marketed coins for organizations to, it's sort of like you can't even send coins into some of these grading companies. It's just people with a sonic sealer, and they're going home, they're, putting coins in holders, attaching a label, and selling it for way more than it's worth. There's also some that traditionally do overgrade, but I know like SEGS is something that is not allowed on eBay, SEGS, but they're also like really good at identifying, or not really good, but they have an interesting sort of holder design, and they also do some of the really specific varieties, and their prices are cheap. So it all depends. There's like a bunch of different things out there, but I like to stick with PCGS and NGC for what I'm doing. NGC is the only one that, or there's also ANAX and ICG, but NGC is like the big one for ancients, and also generally a little bit stronger on world material, though PCGS is solid on world as well. Now, of course, there are potential for fakes to have been authenticated because they do authenticate, and I think that it's the case where it's really minor that these things do occur. And at the big grading companies, if you're buying from PCGS or NGC and you buy a fake, they really take that seriously. They're going to pay full price to sort of get that coin off the market and out of their PCGS holder, NGC holder, because it's really brand damaging. So because they're really well capitalized, have a lot of money, they're able to sort of shore up their reputation. So I know some people, they might say, hey, like this one coin was dubious authentication, or maybe they accidentally overgraded it. I mean, it's possible that, a company can, let something slip, whether it's a mechanical error. I've heard of sometimes a coin is graded proof, or it's graded business strike. When it's a proof, that can mean a really high grade on the business strike side. People way overpay for it. It's possible sometimes the wrong label gets put out there, but it's quite rare. And when it does happen, normally the companies are, trying to step in and do their best to correct. There's also, like, if you're buying a graded coin, you can look up the slab lookup to make sure. I heard of a case, I think, where they said it was like an Ike dollar. It sold for thousands of dollars that should have been business strike, or should have been proof. It was listed as business strike on the holder, but if you looked at the certification number, it was actually, it said that it was proof, and there was just a mess up. So it's like, if you go the extra steps to be careful with the verification, then you're probably going to be fine. There are also, as another negative, some fakes, so there can be fake slabs, but generally those are able to be discovered. It's not always the case, but they are generally something a little bit off. I know Isaiah Hageman and some other people are pretty diligent about trying to do research and understand the different fake authentication, replicas of PCGS. It's not like a company that's not trustworthy. It's like they're trying to say a coin's PCGS certified, use the label. It's not a huge problem in coins, but it can happen, and that's another drawback. I think you can lose if you're trying to compete on like the top pop, the set registry. If you're just buying coins that are super expensive, where there's only one in mint state 69 for business strike, and then like 3 more get added to the pop, well, in that case, you're going to be out of luck. The price is going to decrease pretty rapidly. But I think overall, the set registry concept has added so much more than the fact that, and people know if you're spending that much money on coins, you're going to understand how the game works, where it's more of like a collecting pursuit, and there's definitely potential to lose money or have some downside attached. There can be also a little bit of like an over obsession on grades. Some people, this is more of an old school thought. Again, I am a big fan of grading, and I don't collect like huge sets of all graded coins, so it's not as much of a problem for me. But some would say that there's too much being put into, 64 versus a 65, but even then a 64 plus. There's also maybe some would say too much focus on designations, so full bell lines on a Franklin half dollar, or insisting on full bands on a Mercury dime, or full torch on a Roosevelt dime, full head on a Standing Liberty quarter. I think another one is like the cameo, deep cameo, or non-cameo for proof coins. There's probably a scale. There's some where I know dealers can almost entirely deal in just looking through and cherry picking proof sets for the really nice coins that have the cameo and deep cameo. They feel like something's for sure deep cameo, the grading company will give it to them on the 7th try that they try sending it in, and they felt that was the deep cameo the whole time. There's probably more of a scale than that, and does it make sense to have the value differential for cam be a worthless coin and deep cameo be hundreds and hundreds of dollars? I don't know, that's just sort of how the game works, but I would say that that's getting a little bit, for me, too much focus on the holder, because the whole adage and like what people always say is buy the coin, not the holder. Develop your eye so that you can buy the coins without the holder. And so I guess taking that away, or having people purely buying holders as opposed to coins, that's probably one of the more real biggest problems with coin grading. But again, there's so much, and watch my video for the pros of grading that I think is sort of positive for the hobby. And now we're going to get into a few more gripes. So one thing is that it makes coins easy to market. So I think some companies will do a lot of like custom labels on like modern coins or modern bullion coins. And what people do is these marketing companies then are able to sell these fancy label coins where there's nothing, beyond the 1 ounce of silver in American Silver Eagle that's really valuable on the coin. They're able to sell to people and sort of upsell like a signed label or a picture of a politician or a sports player. And I think it's fun for people to be able to collect with the labels, and it can look nice, but I think that it's not great from a valuation perspective, and I would rather see less of that. Just so that people can like focus on buying really truly nice, great eye appeal, rare, older, genuinely collectible coins, and instead of doing the like purely marketed modern labels. I think that is something that exists also sort of at the better grading companies, whereas there can be the downside of, again, like the marketing where somebody just buys a bunch of proof sets, puts them in fancy holders, and then tries to sell them for more than the proof set itself, when the grading company that's doing it isn't accredited really or respected by anybody in the numismatic community. This is also maybe something that I don't agree with, but makes people more skeptical of raw coins because, especially in the US, like, it makes sense. If you have a nice coin, you probably want to get it graded just so that you can show that it's like not cleaned or a details coin or fake even. And people, if nobody wants to buy raw coins that are worth thousands and thousands of dollars. They want to see that having been graded. Now, I would say the flip side of that is like confidence, and the grading is really important to avoid like a tooled or whizzed coin or coin that's been really worked on or fake coin. Maybe it's a little different in terms of how you're looking at it for the eye appeal, and like, does it matter AU53 versus 55? If you think the 53 looks better, of course you should buy the 53 because it's going to be cheaper. So that's just something, and maybe you can upgrade it as well. But the raw of people avoiding raw coins I've heard talked about kind of makes sense, but I don't really think that that's a big deal. It is also subjective, so coins definitely are going to come back. It's not a science; it's people's opinion, and if you submit the coin 100 times, you're probably going to get different grades. So that just is what it is. You have to understand that it's subjective. I don't think that that's a downside. Some people complain about that. I think another thing people complain about is that means money flows into the U.S. market because, again, it provides all those pros, a lot of liquidity, sight unseen buying, and that means that people are more, able to invest in a lot of the U.S. coin market, whereas like with World, where there's a lot less graded and there's a lot less appetite for grading coins, it means that it's going to be tougher maybe for as much money to flow into it, which might be fine. But that's just something that I've noticed that contributes to the maybe relative inflation of the U.S. coin market versus the non-U.S. Lastly, I don't think that this is really a problem. NGC doesn't attach an ancients guarantee on authenticity. I mean, that's just like, they care about their business. They're not going to slab something they think is fake. It's not like they just put the grade on it. They're going to send it back if they view it as fake, and they do a really good job in general figuring that out. But it's like a problem where, anybody, all the grading companies are going to try to do their best job, and that's why, it's maybe tough, and this could be the last downside for new grading companies to emerge, just because there's a lot of infrastructure, a lot of trust, but then also, there's some really dominant established players. And that's just sort of like the way the coin market works. But again, if you're, a big supporter of the grading companies, and I would probably include myself in that, you should also watch my video where I discuss a lot of the positives, because I think that there's a lot of nuances, and I'd be curious if there's anything you feel like I'm missing out on that I didn't discuss here. At the end of the day, you want to develop your eye, buy the coin, not the grade, and that's really the big takeaway that you should be getting from this video. But I do understand that there can be a few more challenges, like I've outlined, and probably a few more that I didn't, that can pertain and relate to these grading companies. Thanks for watching the video. I'd encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel to stay updated. I've also got Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, so you can follow me there. TreasureTownYT.com is the main channel website. Definitely give that a visit. I've got a lot of information about me up there and the channel. CoinGrabBag.com as well currently redirects there, but it's some good opportunities for very fair grab bags, both made by me and other sellers. A lot of different options, so that's a good way to support. There's also TreasureTownCoins.com. In the future, my coin dealing operation will be done out of that website. CoinMeltPrice.com for updates on the melt prices of your coins, both US and world. A lot of resources in that website. And then CoinsMetalsCards.com being developed right now as a marketplace and news source for coins, metals, cards, and collectibles in general. So I'll see you on my future videos. Looking forward to seeing you there, and hope you have a good day.